Saxon Algebra 1, Lesson 24. This lesson is about the multiplicative property of equality. If we start with a true equation, 2 equals 2, and then multiply both sides by 3, we end up with another true equation. This is the multiplicative property of equality. If a, b, and c are any real numbers, and if we start with the equation a equals b, then a times c equals b times c, and we can also write c times a equals c times b. In other words, we can multiply both sides of an equation by the same number. Be careful. If one or both sides consist of more than one term, you must multiply the whole side and not just one of the terms. For example, 2 plus 4 is equal to 9 minus 3. They're both 6. If we now decide to multiply both sides by a number, in this case 3, we must multiply the whole sides, and we can use the distributive property to do that if we wish. It looks like this. And that gives us 6 plus 12 equals 27 minus 9. So you have 18 equals 18. We end up multiplying every term on each side. Since division is the inverse of multiplication, we can also divide both sides by the same number. But if there is more than one term on a side, we must divide every term by that number. If we start with 6 equals 9 minus 3, and divide both sides by 3, it looks like this. On the right side, because of the way we subtract fractions, we have to distribute that 3 with each of the terms. That gives us 2 equals 3 minus 1, or 2 equals 2. If every term on both sides of an equation is multiplied or divided by the same non-zero quantity, the resulting equation will be equivalent to the original equation, and so every solution of one of these equations will be a solution of the other equation. For example, suppose we want to solve 4x equals 12. We want to know what x equals, so we divide both sides by 4. This cancels the 4 on the left, and we have x equals 3. Division is the inverse of multiplication. We could also multiply both sides of this equation by the reciprocal of 4, which is 1/4. 1/4 of 4 is 1, so we have x on the left side, and 1/4 of 12 is 3, we have 3 on the right side. Let's consider some more examples. We want to solve 5x equals 20. We would like to get rid of the 5 so that x is by itself on the left. One way to do this is to divide both sides by 5. That will cancel the 5 in front of the x, and 5 into 20 is 4. So we end up with x equals 4. Another way to solve this problem is to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 5, which is 1/5. That will cancel the 5 in front of the x. And 5 into 20 is 4 again. So once again, we get x equals 4. Here's another example. 2/5 x equals 7. Again, we could divide both sides by 2/5 to get rid of the coefficient of x. And that gives us x equals 7 times 5 over 2, because 7 divided by 2/5 is 7 times the reciprocal of 2/5. And 7 times 5 over 2 is 35 halves. So x is 35 halves. Or we could multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 2/5. That's 5 halves. 5 halves times 2/5 gives you 1, so we have x equals 35 halves once again. Here's another example. 2 1/4 x equals 3. We could divide both sides by 2 1/4, and that gives us 3 divided by 9/4. We write 2 1/4 as an improper fraction, and then we multiply by the reciprocal of 9/4. Now the 3 cancels into the 9, goes into 9 3 times, so we can simplify that before we multiply. And we end up with x equals 4/3. Or we could write the 2 1/4 as 9/4 at the beginning, so the equation is equivalent to 9/4 x equals 3. And then we can multiply by the reciprocal of 9/4, which is 4/9. That will cancel the 9/4 in front of the x. And again, on the right side, we can simplify before we multiply and end up with 4/3. Suppose our equation is x divided by 3 equals 9. Well, the inverse of division is multiplication, so we will multiply both sides by 3. That way the 3's cancel on the left, and we get x equals 27. If we have x divided by a mixed number, x divided by 2 1/2 equals 7, we can undo the division by multiplying both sides by the 2 1/2. Then the 2 1/2's cancel. To multiply 2 1/2 times 7, we have to convert 2 1/2 to an improper fraction, 5 halves. And 5 halves times 7 is 35 halves. This is the end of Lesson 24. Your assignment is problem set 24 on pages 104 to 106 of your book.